recently, we've been talking with a whole lot of runners based in Flagstaff. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Flagstaff is one of the hotbeds for distance running in America. But today, we're going to flip to the other side of the map, to another iconic distance running city, Boston. Our guest today is Jackie Gaughan, who proudly calls herself a Boston runner on Instagram. And let me be clear, that's spelled Runnah in that unmistakable Boston accent. Jackie has logged many, many miles on the streets of Beantown and along the Charles River and has deep New England roots. So do I, which is just one reason why I've been looking forward to our discussion. I'm your host, Steve Sievert, by the way. Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Inside the Marathon Project. Jackie is quickly emerging as one of the most exciting new names on the American marathon scene, and one of the bold-faced names in the women's field for the second running of the Marathon Project, which is coming up pretty quickly now, the weekend of December 20th and 21st in Chandler, Arizona. And I'm just going to make a suggestion. Get your holiday shopping done early so you can be available for appointment viewing with the live stream on FloTrack the morning of December 21st. Well, that's enough of the preamble. Let's get Jackie in here to learn more about the Jackie Gaughan story. Jackie, thank you so much for joining Inside the Marathon Project.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Now, when you first meet someone, how do you introduce yourself?
I feel like I'm usually first pronouncing my last name. Just kind of introducing myself. I'm Jackie Gaughan. Live in Boston. I'm a runner. I work in the finance industry. I think those are,
And I ask that maybe somewhat odd question because, as you just referenced, there are multiple layers to your life. You're a professional runner. You've got that box checked. But you're also a professional in the finance industry. You have that box checked as well. Why does having a full life with multiple layers, equal fast in terms of your marathon times for you? How does that work for you, and why does that work for you?
Yeah, I think it gives a balance to the different endeavors I'm trying to achieve. I think marathon training takes a lot of energy, a lot of miles, but I think as much mental, as much as you can mentally take yourself away from it when you're not training, I think at least it's been a very healthy balance for me. I think having something else to focus on leads to less mental fatigue with the sport. And I think just overall, being a happier person makes me a better runner. And I think that outweighs maybe a little bit less recovery, a little bit less sleep, a little bit less of the little things. I think being a happier person is outweighs all of that.
Now, we can't talk about your story without taking a pretty deep dive and a look back to 2024. I mean, it was a big, big year for you. But I want to go a bit out of chronological order here, stick with the Boston theme, and talk about April of this year. As I mentioned in the open, you're based in Boston. You've covered a lot of miles in that city. You've run other races at other distances in Boston, but this was your first Boston Marathon. And I can only imagine you as a kid growing up in New England. Exeter, for those who don't know, is just about an hour or so north of Boston. So you're right in the hub, essentially, of this iconic American city, the most famous marathon in the world. What were your emotions when you were heading to the starting line back in April in Hopkinton?
Yeah, no, it's such a special race, especially being from this area. My first 2 years living in Boston, I was out on the course cheering and kind of watching some of my friends prepare for the race. I think it's just a very emotional, kind of whole person type of build up to the race where you're training on the course, and so many people here in the city are training for it as well too. And I think if you're in Boston from, I don't know, maybe January or February to April, the first question anyone will ask you if you say you're a runner is, are you running Boston? So it's just a very feel like a communal experience to be part of. And um, this year I was kind of on the fence of it was going to be my third marathon in 6 months. But if it wasn't Boston, um, or I guess like if it were any other race, I don't think I would have lined up for a third one. But this one was just so special to me. And I had a lot of fun with the build up. It felt like the whole city was training for the same race. I think like from the start of the race felt a little bit off. And I think it was really like the crowds and the energy on the course that carried me through to the finish line and inspired me to like give my best on the day, even if it wasn't quite my best day. Yeah, no, it was definitely something else crossing that finish line.
And when you were able to cross the finish line, reflect on it a little bit, you kind of alluded to it there as well. You gave your best on that day. So 2:32 and change, 21st place finish. You were the top Bostonian. That's an award that they give out at the race. You've had some time, obviously a lot of time now to reflect on that. How does that race sit with you today in terms of that was the effort, that was the performance that you put forth for your first Boston?
Yeah, no, I'm actually very proud of it. I think like more so like beyond just the time, I think like really showed my like true Bostonian spirit of like pushing through when I didn't feel good, when like things weren't going the way I envisioned and the splits weren't clicking off and like kind of rolling through those tough moments. Us Bostonians, we have to power through the tough winters here and the traffic and to make way for like some beautiful summers and falls. And in the same way, I feel like I really powered through the tough moments in that race to get to the finish line. And just knowing so many people out on the course like support me, just kind of remember thinking just like each mile trying to pick a different person who'd really supported me along the way and thinking about them and reasons to keep going is just a lot of people out on that course who had supported me.
And Boston can be such a tough race to get right. As you alluded to, the weather, the emotions, the course, not to mention the course. Goodness, who can forget about that? I've been fortunate enough to finish 5 times. I've never come within 25 minutes of my PR. I mean, I haven't gotten that race right. When you look back on your performance, was there one or two elements of your performance, elements of the experience that you're going to take away and learn from to try to apply in another attempt in Boston?
Yeah, no, I think I crossed the finish line thinking like, wow, this was really hard, but this was also so much fun and I want to run this race again. Not sure quite when that will be, but I think like really running the hills is important. I think maybe incorporating some like strength training. I think just overall becoming like really strong at the hill running, especially that like downhill section in the beginning. I think I've done a lot of practice running uphill, but maybe second time around doing some more practice running downhill as well.
What's been your focus since Boston?
Yeah, I think like this spring was feeling a little bit tired coming off of those 3 marathons in 6 months. So I actually felt like I took a little bit of a step back from training, a little bit of a step back from racing, and I think that's something maybe that's I don't know unique for where I am in professional running, where I feel like I can do that because I have like other areas of my life where I can really lean into when I feel like I need kind of that like mental refresh and mental break from the training as well too. So really leaned into some areas of my career outside of running and felt very refreshed coming into summer training and hit up some of the fun New England summer road races. Raced the Copenhagen half marathon, and I think that set me up well for a good build up for the marathon project.
One more Boston related question before we move on. I've heard you say in an interview that one of the aspects of the city that you absolutely love is the community. And besides the obvious, the marathon, I mean, it goes back to 1897. What are the elements of the community that resonate with you, that feed your soul, for lack of a better description? Because in the interview that you did, that really came off as you love this place. And what is it specifically about the community that you enjoy so much?
Yeah, I think there's just this special group of people that are out on there's this the river path in Boston, the Esplanade along the Charles River. It's pretty much the big key place to run. And there's a whole group of regular folk out, I don't know, between 5 a.m. to 7, 8 o'clock, getting their miles in before work. And I feel like I've really found a really great community through that. I have met a lot of great people just through that running community, and I feel like I've also been very inspired by it. Just seeing friends and those I've met on the river just having huge responsibilities the moment they take their sneakers off, and still coming out and pushing and putting in hard efforts and training for big races. I think it inspires me mornings where I'm tired and would love to sleep in, get that extra hour of sleep and miss my run. But then I remember I have all these fellow runners out there too, pursuing their goals despite maybe other obligations they have in their life too.
It's great perspective, right? As you approach each day and get your training in.
Yeah. And I think just running is one of the best ways to connect with people and make friends as well too. And I feel like it's been a great way to connect with my community.
Well, let's jump back then now to 2024. As I mentioned earlier, big year for you. Top 25 finish at the Olympic trials, 2:38 and change at Chicago. And then what I believe meets the definition of what every pro runner wants to hear. Heck, what every runner wants to hear is breakthrough. At California International, you run 2:24. When you look back at 2024 and that performance in particular that capped it at CIM in December, how did you feel about how that year went for you?
Yeah, no, I think that was very exciting and very rewarding. And anybody who trains with me knows just what goes into that. And I think I'd been knocking on the door for a little bit, in good shape going up into the trials. But I think just there's so many factors when you run a marathon in Florida, so many things that can go wrong. And then, yeah, I think with Chicago, I kind of learned about how important fueling is. I think it was only a matter of time. It seems like a rite of passage for a lot of marathoners, and was bound to learn it at some point and learned it the hard way. So corrected some of those, developed a mid-race kind of fueling strategy with gels and fluids, and had some rocky training heading into CIM. Just I think was getting pretty tired, pretty fatigued just from marathon training for so long, and didn't really have high hopes besides I just kind of want to have a fun time. And I have teammates and friends who are traveling out, and my boyfriend was running the race as well too. And I figured I'd sign up and try to see if this fueling strategy was kind of worth what everyone was talking about, if it was going to make a difference. And yeah, I think that was the race where it kind of just all clicked at once. And yeah, very exciting. I think it made me wonder how much further I can go if I can really fine tune some of these pieces of the marathon. It's such a long race that the small details can make a really big impact. They can be very accumulate over the race.
I want to pull on one thread that you just mentioned there for a second. You said in the buildup to CIM, there were some rocky moments. Maybe it didn't go exactly according to plan, and yet you pop a PR big time, and on this massive negative split, which I want to ask you about in a minute. But does that give you some confidence going forward that if you do experience some rough patches in a build, that it's not something that you have to get overly concerned about or just really dwell, because you've demonstrated now that that's happened and you've gone into a race and been able to overcome that?
Yeah. I think it's taught me if you're getting the work in, you're getting your heart rate up when it matters on the days that matter. Not every single workout has to be perfect. There can be moments of imperfection in the build up, but just having faith in your full body of work. I think just having faith in the training I'd done the past 3 years was very helpful leading into that.
All right. So I mentioned a minute ago, this massive negative split, 114, what was it? 114.19 in the first half, and then 110.21 in the second half. That's a negative split for the ages right there, Jackie. Take us into that. What was that the approach going in to be ultra conservative? Well, not ultra conservative. I mean, that's still a 2:28 marathon. But was it the plan to be conservative in the first half and then just see what you had left in the second half and try to take advantage of this new fueling strategy?
Yeah. I think because the build, those like couple weeks leading up to it had been so rocky, I think I was a little ignorant to like what fitness was underneath kind of those rough workouts. So went out pretty conservative, just wanted to feel comfortable, like feel it out. Didn't want to feel like I was like underwater halfway and like gasping for not conversational. And then once I got to halfway, felt good and was, yeah, just like every single fuel station, grabbing a gel, grabbing a bottle, making sure I was proactive with it. And yeah, still felt good. So decided to like pick it up a little bit. Didn't look at my watch much after 16 because I kind of feel like that's the point of like less can go. I mean, stuff can still go wrong, but less can go wrong. And it's kind of just like at that point, like a 10-mile tempo run. And yeah, I just remember like picking it up gradually as I went along, trying not to think too much about it. I think like in those last moments of that marathon, I remember kind of just thinking about like a lot of the like hard things I'd overcome like in my personal life over the past year, and just kind of thinking like this running is something that's like so much in your control. Just the effort that you put in is so much in your control. And that was like very freeing over those last couple miles, just feeling like I was very in control of like the effort I was putting out, and was able to put that out because I had the gas in the tank from taking the gels earlier on. And yeah. And then crossing the finish line, I think it was all that more rewarding after like having that rocky marathon at Chicago, and even the trials was a tough day. It kind of was reassuring to me too. I think it was kind of like there's always kind of that voice in the back of your head kind of questioning yourself, and it kind of gave that voice a slap in the face. So
Boy, don't you wish you could bottle up that feeling that you had in the latter stages of CIM and say, let me take that with me for every marathon the rest of my life? I mean, because that's a fantastic feeling.
yeah. Even like outside of running too, I wish I could like bottle it up and just carry it with me around all day long, whether it's something I'm trying to tackle at work or something just in like day-to-day life. I think back on it and think like, okay, like you bombed 2 marathons, then came back and crushed one. Like you can crush this project, crush this assignment, whatever I need to tackle. But
so along those lines, that's a great lead into my next question. What do you feel like the 2:24 performance at CIM did for you in terms of perhaps opening up the aperture and saying what's possible in the marathon? What do you think that did for your confidence going forward?
yeah, I don't think it really changed much. I think like it just kind of raises the bar for myself in terms of like wanting to run faster. But I don't think that like has changed the whole outlook. I think even when I was running 2:34 in my first marathon, it raised the bar to thinking like, okay, can I break 2:30? And then I think running 2:27, I was trying to break 2:26 that season. I think it's just like, it's the same goal to run faster. It's just like raising the bar even higher. And I do think like, as I keep raising the bar for myself, I do wonder like, what does that mean in 2028? I think it like brings a little bit more of that consideration into my mind. And I mean, even if I don't succeed, I'd love to like raise that bar to maybe having a top 10 performance at the trials, or that just kind of like going for it. And there's a long way to go till then, but I think it just puts new goals on the radar.
Great performance at CIM. That was a heck of a way to start off December. Later in that month, your name lands in a press release. Saucony signs Jackie Gaughan to a contract. It's a milestone. What did you do to celebrate that?
Yeah, no, I have been running in Saucony sneakers ever since I started buying sneakers. I mean, as a kid, I wore the Convaras, and I've turned into kind of I wear their Ride and their Triumph for my easy runs now. And so it was like an easy transition. I didn't even have to like try out any shoes because I was already wearing them. There was no transition. Didn't have to worry about like any of those like little injuries or niggles that pop up when you start wearing new footwear. And it's been great. They're so supportive. They have an office right here in Boston, and um, it's been a great team to be part of. I have to say, everyone I've talked to on the Saucony team and within their corporate office as well too has been so nice and supportive. And I think just the whole mission too is it's a lot of people like me who just like want to find the joy in the sport.
There's a lot to be said for that, finding the joy in the sport. Absolutely. Well, before we jump in and talk about the marathon project, maybe some of the goals that you have for that race, I do want to step back to those New England routes that I mentioned at the Open. And I think if you surveyed running fans to come up with a short list of states that produce elite level distance running, or runners rather, probably a safe bet that New Hampshire is not going to end up on that list. Yet here you are, and there have been some other examples of elites who have come up in New Hampshire. But as you were finding your way in the sport in Exeter, New Hampshire, what did you look to for inspiration? Or who did you look to for inspiration as you were at an earlier age finding that joy, finding that passion for the sport?
Yeah. Yeah, coming up as like a high school, middle school kid, I think like a lot of times you look around to your classmates and I think like from an early age, it was like something I had always enjoyed. I come from a family of four kids and I have to say we all have our sports, but not all of us kind of have that like running itch. I think you can probably sum it up. Like my brother will come home from a run and it was awful. I used to lie down on the couch for a while and I feel like I come back tired, but like just like really energized and kind of have that endorphin rush. It's always been something I've like found a lot of self satisfaction from and have really enjoyed it. And later into like my high school career too, I think like my high school coach was someone who really pushed me and encouraged me to like dream a little bigger. And I had a mentor in Kathy O'Brien, who's also a huge New Hampshire, a great marathoner as well too. So I think I had a lot of people who like encouraged me early on to like dream big with it, and who kind of exposed me to like the fact that you could go to college and run and like go beyond the level I was at.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm so glad you brought up Kathy because I was going to ask you about her. Some of our viewers might not be familiar with her story, although she is a three-time Olympian and finished ninth in the Olympic marathon trials as a high schooler. So if you don't know about Kathy Shiro, her name before she was married, check her out on Google. She's an inspirational story. So how did you get in touch with Kathy and how did she become your mentor?
Yeah, I'm sure you know from living in New Hampshire, but it's such a small world there, and I think just crossing over within the cross country meet world, it's a small community, so we are bound to cross paths at some point. And then yeah, I think just like I had a great high school team, a great high school coach, and Kathy like really taught me like the importance of like balance with the sport and just having like a really healthy perspective on like yes, like running hard, but like it shouldn't be stressful or anything like that. It should be something that like you need to push yourself and like train hard, but like that like mental stress with it should not be there.
Well, take us into your setup and your support system now in terms of your coaching structure. Are you training with a group there? Take us inside how your setup right now is preparing you for the next stage of your career.
Yeah. I recently made just like a coaching and team change this spring. I now run with the Rhode Island Track Club and train with Kurt Benninger, Molly Huddle's husband, who's another Saucony athlete. But I obviously don't live in Rhode Island, so most of my training is kind of remotely on my own. I train with like a lot of other runners here in Boston on different clubs. I think that's the nice thing with the sport is there's no kind of no like club competitive. Everyone works out with everybody. Everyone runs with everybody. It's not like the Yankees practicing with the Red Sox. So yeah, and I think like there's quite a few of us from the Rhode Island Track Club here in Boston too. So every so often we'll meet up for a Northern Rhode Island Track Club team run. But yeah, no, I think with my crazy schedule too, I think it's like really nice to have a coach who like is willing to be flexible and takes that into account. And I think like I have a lot of autonomy into like how I fit things around my lifestyle.
So as you move forward to the start line in Chandler on December 21st for the Marathon Project, and you're focusing on your build, what is like one or two key workouts that you'll look to make sure that they're a part of the build, working with your coach to say, that's going to give you the data to know exactly where you are and whether or not you're on point to head to the starting line?
Yeah. I'll run the Philly half marathon as kind of like a check-in point a little bit further out. But as we get like later into the build, those like longer, continuous marathon efforts are something that give me a lot of confidence. Historically, I'll usually do, I don't know, anywhere from like 13 to 14, 15 miles at like marathon effort to kind of figure out what marathon pace is. And that's always one that like gives me a lot of confidence. But yeah, I think like we're still early, so a lot of it is just kind of like honing in and like trying to find that pace, and then later on, like just trying to find the rhythm with it. I always kind of think like marathon pace is a little bit of it's like dancing. You like kind of have to find the rhythm and find where your feet belong with it, and hoping to find that like later into the build. And yeah, still in the building block stage right now.
Well, as I mentioned in the open, you're one of the bold-faced names in the women's field for the Marathon Project. And just to translate that a little bit, now I know putting actual numbers on bibs these days is passé. We love the names on the bibs, I think. And I'm not at liberty to let you know what number you would have. Ben Rosario told me, all right, you can't divulge any information yet because he wants to obviously release that and make a big deal out of it later for the entire women's field. But let's just say it's probably going to be a low number. How does that make you feel now that you're coming off the CIM race in December where you finished second? That's stamped you as a top contender going into the Marathon Project now. You're one of the ones that are going to be among those fighting for not just the podium, but potentially the win. How does that feel going into your next marathon effort?
Yeah, no, I think it's very exciting. I love to compete. It's so fun. I think like that's the reason why we don't just do time trials. It's like extremely fun to compete. And I think, but numbers are kind of like meaningless when you go into a marathon race. I think that's also like what's unique about our sport. Like rankings don't really matter. It's not a bracket. Like we're all lining up on the same start line, and um, everyone has kind of like an equal chance. And that also excites me too. Like regardless of like where I'm ranked, like I have a shot at the win, and so does so does every other girl like standing next to me too. And that's what makes it so fun. And um, but yeah, no, I think it definitely sets kind of like another goal out there too. It's something besides the time.
So that's great perspective and keeping it in perspective in that regard that whether you would have a 1, a 2, or a 25 on your bib, everyone has a shot to be the one who breaks the tape that day. Does that mean that you don't really feel like there's a need to follow the field or understand who's in the field because you're going to go out and run your own race anyway? Or are you kind of curious about who's going to be there on the line with you that day?
Yeah. I think something I'm like really have become good at is kind of knowing how to stay like within myself, kind of knowing, I think just through training, like what is my pace, like what pace is gonna like give me kind of like bring the best out of myself on that day. Like I think with a race that's so long, you don't want to like kind of go beyond what you're capable of too early on. It's impossible to give more than 100%. So I think like knowing where that line is just from like it's yeah, like a feeling. So I don't think I'll track too much as far as like what anyone else is trying to do as far as pace, unless it's maybe kind of like we all run fast. So if it's like working together, like during the race, I always think like that's super helpful to like bring the best out of everybody. And yeah, I think like I'll be very focused on like kind of where my fitness is at and setting myself up for success too.
Does the nature of this course and how it's set up to produce fast times, the criterium course, does that change the strategy at all? Or it's just go out and race, go out and compete?
Yeah. Originally when I was trying to decide like what I wanted to do for my next marathon, I was kind of thinking like what excited me. And it's running fast and like I wanted to run a PR and started to think, okay, like where do I go to do that? That's gonna like set me up to be the most successful, like put myself in the position to succeed. And I think this course does that. I think it's like different from any other marathon I've run where there might not be as much like energy from like the city or the crowds or the just the course itself. It's I feel like a lot of the energy will have to come from the competitors and the people on the course trying to achieve. Everyone's there to run a PR. I would think for the most part, with it just being such a fast course. So I'm hoping we can all like pull each other through with that goal. And yeah, I haven't run a course that's loops like this before, besides I guess the trials. But I run a lot of the very monotonous routes here in Boston. There's only so many places to run, so do a lot of like looped workouts, and so it's not too different than what I do week to week, to be honest.
You raise an interesting point there about obviously this is not a big city marathon. This is purpose built to help runners run fast, but there's going to be a lot of competition on the line as well. Does the fact that there might be a little bit less surrounding the race in terms of hoopla or events or just maybe the overall energy, would that potentially allow you to focus even more and sort of just be really dialed into, hey, I'm here for this effort and this is what all my energy is going toward?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely brings out kind of that like, all right, like business trip, do your job kind of mentality. And yeah, there definitely won't be too many distractions along the course, but I think everything should be streamlined in as far as like knowing where the bottles are and kind of knowing where the tangents are. And yeah, no, this is my first kind of like criterium, like you were saying earlier, style course.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask a few more personal questions. One of the things that I'm intrigued about is what it was like to be a student athlete at one of the most prestigious universities in America, Notre Dame. Take us behind the curtain a little bit for those who might not have gone to Notre Dame, and that's going to be the vast majority of our audience. What was that like?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world, and I'm a very proud alumni. But yeah, I think there was, as I was like earlier on, just trying to figure out where I wanted to go to school, it was important to me to find a place where like I didn't have to like give up on either end, give up like my athletic goals or my academic goals. And I think like I visited a lot of schools where it was like academics before athletics or athletics before academics, but Notre Dame was a place where they were like, no, like we expect you to do both, and like you need to give like 100% in everything you do here. And I was like, great, like I'm on board, like I'm up for the challenge. And there was a community and support around me. I think it's a very, very warm, welcoming. Notre Dame families kind of you feel at the moment you walk on campus. And I feel like I've pulled a lot of that mentality into like my post collegiate career as well too. I think graduating, there was kind of that question in my mind of like, okay, like I'm getting a big girl job. I'm working 60 hours a week. Like that means I can't run anymore. But I think there was that other side that was like, no, like I don't have to give up like these big running goals I have. Like I can do both. Like why not? Like maybe I'll prove myself wrong, but haven't quite yet. So I'm gonna keep trying.
You mentioned earlier about the flexibility that you have with your coaching setup. I want to talk for a moment about the flexibility on the other end, because this is really relatable to the vast majority of our audience in terms of balancing a full-time job. If someone's an elite age group athlete, or maybe they're just running for the pleasure of it and running for fun, but obviously they're still working full-time. How do you adjust? How are you nimble? How do you balance that side of working full-time with the demands of training? A tip or two for our audience.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think there's definitely easier paths than trying to do the finance career and professional running. But I think this is just what I find the most rewarding. And I think yeah, I think it's also exciting. I think I don't feel like there's been a lot of role models recently of people working kind of like those 9 to 5s and working part-time jobs and kind of like incorporating that more into their running. But I guess I don't see as much of the spectrum of people working 9 to 10, 9 to 11, and still doing professional running. And I guess I just hope I can be kind of like maybe a role model for somebody like that who like doesn't want to give up doesn't want to kind of like shape their career around their athletic goals. But yeah, no, I think my day to day, it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit hectic, but I think it's all about like prioritizing like what's most important and like what's most impactful into whatever I'm trying to achieve. So there's certain things that might fall through the cracks. I just think might not get enough sleep the night before an easy run, but maybe the night before workout, I need to push something a day later in my inbox, or I think, yeah, just kind of like streamlining like what's most important. And yeah, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm not sure if I'm still a Belichick fan, but I always think of that quote, just do your job. And I think that's resonated with me when I'm like out doing mile repeats. It's like I can't be thinking about what I need to do at work in the next half hour. I need to be focused on these mile repeats and doing my job. And then when I'm done with these, it's time to do my other job. It's time to like take care of my clients and yeah, work with my teammates. And just, yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice is just like do your job when you're supposed to do your when you're supposed to do your job, and be very all in on whatever you're doing, but you don't need to be like all in all the time.
Great advice. Focus on the moment and give yourself some grace and flexibility, and then move on to the next moment to apply that same focus. I think that's great advice. What's been your most memorable or favorite moment so far in running?
Oh wow, geez, that's a great question. Um, it's hard not to like go back from those PRs. I think like those are the moments that like, yeah, just like whether you surprise yourself, or I think even so like the build up behind it. I think finishing the Berlin Marathon was maybe one of my favorites. I think it was my first time traveling for an international race. I ran like a 5 or 6 minute PR, so it was something beyond what I could ever imagine. And then that night we went straight to Oktoberfest and celebrated like we just ran 5 minute PRs. So yeah, I think that was one of the first race where I was like, wow, like I can be like a really good marathoner. Like this is maybe something that's more than just like a hobby.
So many similarities. I did that exact same thing in 2023, Berlin, and then Oktoberfest afterward. I think
Yeah.
as two kids who grew up in New Hampshire, I think I can say this for the both of us, right? It's going to be really tough to top a marathon experience in Boston, but what about going through the Brandenburg Gate?
Yeah, no, it's quite a finish line.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, one last question. You have a golden doodle named Dude. Please tell me he's named after Dude from The Big Lebowski.
He is, yeah. My dad's, yeah, a huge fan of that movie, and yeah, no, he was the coolest.
Now, is he hanging out with you, or is he with your folks back in New Hampshire?
Unfortunately, he did pass away this summer, but
Oh,
he's with me in spirit. Yeah, I'll be thinking about him. Yeah, maybe mile 22 of the marathon project, kind of getting some inspiration from him. And But yeah, no, he was the coolest.
That is great. Well, my condolences for your loss. I've lost a four-legged family member myself, and I know that is never easy. But
Oh yeah,
he's
it
in
was
your
family.
he's in your heart and your memories forever. Well, Jackie, thanks so much for spending time with us on Inside the Marathon Project. I really enjoyed our conversation. Wish you absolutely the best of luck in the rest of the build. Looking forward to meeting you in Chandler and seeing if it can come through again. I know you're shooting for another PR, and I know I'll be pulling for you for sure.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Yeah, and I'll see you in December.
We are one race, one project, one pursuit. It's the Marathon Project, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of Inside TMP.